Jake Paul and Mike Tyson now have been suspended from boxing after a controversial fight in Texas.
Jake Paul has officially been arrested, and honestly, it's about time karma showed up. Did he really think he could keep scamming people without consequences? This time, he's messed with boxing fans, not his gullible TikTok followers. These aren't the type to let scams slide.
The whole thing was scripted. The whole thing was just a money grab. And for a lot of us,
His scripted boxing antics are just the tip of the iceberg, though. Jake's track record is a laundry list of shady dealings, from fake fights to exploitative schemes, all designed to milk his influence for profit. But now the tables have turned, and justice is finally catching up. Jake's rise to infamy began long before this mess. Back in his Vine days, he wasn't just obnoxious, he was toxic. Reports of bullying and blackmail painted a grim picture, with claims of cyberbullying so severe they led to suicide attempts. Then came Team 10 in 2017, Jake's dystopian youth.
28-year-old kid who, used to be a YouTuber, and he's worked hard to learn boxing. He really has. He's come along, but really, he's still not of that level.
YouTube collective. Far from a creative hub, it was a nightmare. Members were spied on, phones were tapped, and lives were controlled. It was basically a cult with bad merch. And let's not forget the infamous mansion saga. Neighbors called the police nearly 50 times, reporting explosions, arson, and other chaos. One girl was even injured during one of Jake's reckless stunts. His solution? Throw money at the problem. No apology, just hush cash. Classic Jake. While causing havoc in the neighborhood, Jake was busy inflating his ego, profiting off gullible fans, and dodging accountability at every turn. Now, as his scripted boxing circus crumbles, it's clear he's
I said, I don't like the fact that they keep messing with that mouthpiece.
Left hook! Triple left hook by Paul! He wobbled Tyson!
Mike's hurt.
finally pushed too far. The scams, the stunts, the exploitation. It's all catching up to him. Jake Paul, or should we say Joke Paul, is finally getting a taste of his own medicine. Jake Paul's rise to fame has been propped up by bots. Literally. Up to 40% of his views were fake, making his online success as genuine as his boxing career. But why stop there when you can scam kids out of their allowances? Enter the financial freedom movement, Jake's pandemic-era cash grab. For a few $100s, he promised kids they'd become millionaires without leaving their rooms. What did they
At the end of the day, Jake Paul's fans got screwed while he got rich. But I guess anything to get that bag, right? We'll see how that excuse holds up in court.
actually get? Repackaged internet guides and plagiarized tips from real business coaches, while Jake pocketed $2 million in just 3 months. If scamming were a sport, maybe he'd actually deserve a title belt. Then came the crypto scams. Jake turned pump-and-dump schemes into an art form, hyping junk tokens to his fans while secretly owning all the assets. The infamous Doink token scandal saw Jake pocket $10 million by dumping 100% of the tokens he controlled, leaving his fans broke and disillusioned. And who could forget his NFT disaster? A $4 million cash grab that vanished as fast as his fanbase when the FBI came knocking. Jake's foray into boxing wasn't about glory or dignity, it was just another chapter in his career of con artistry. It started with
He's not as dumb as you guys probably think he is, but he's also not as smart as he thinks he is. So even though Jake Paul is going to try to hide his various crypto accounts,
underground matches in Los Angeles, which were less about fighting and more about laundering, with bets soaring to $1 million per match. These bare-knuckle brawls left 5 fighters with life-altering injuries, and 1 participant allegedly disappeared altogether. This wasn't a legacy, it's a true crime documentary in the making. When underground fights weren't enough, Jake moved on to rigging official ones. Take his 2020 fight with Anderson Gibb, which many claimed was as scripted as his online persona. Rumors swirled that Gibb was paid off to take a dive, further tarnishing the sport and solidifying Jake's reputation as a fraud. Whether it's bots, scams, or rigged matches, Jake Paul's empire was built on deceit, leaving behind a trail of empty promises and betrayed fans. If karma keeps this pace, Jake's next title might just be Most Notorious Scammer in Entertainment. Jake Paul's boxing career is less about talent and more about transactions. Take his 2020 fight against Anison Gibb. Rumor has
it Jake Paul's fans got screwed while he got rich, but I guess anything to get that bag, right? We'll see how that excuse holds up in court.
Gibb scored a sweet $500,000 bonus to take a dive in the first round. Offshore accounts buzzed louder than a Vegas slot machine as millions were funneled out before the fight even ended. Fast forward to 2021, and we got the Ben Askren debacle. Fake bets worth $30 million flooded the market, and Askren folded to a punch so weak it couldn't topple a paper bag. Whispers of bribery turned into full-blown accusations, but Jake kept strutting, confident his growing bank account could outlast the outrage. Then there are Jake's extracurricular activities, which could double as a crime thriller plot. His so-called training camps in Mexico included pit stops in cartel-heavy territories. Coincidence? Only if you believe in fairy tales. Adding to the sketchiness were 3 convicted drug smugglers on his team.
Paul got paid 39.9 Ethereum for the Sacred Devils promotional scam, which you can see right here. It's worth $139,000, which puts him on the board, which later linked up with a huge ring of NFT scammers we busted.
Jake's real training regime, evading the law while masquerading as a boxer. But the pièce de resistance of Jake's fraudulent career, his supposed showdown with Mike Tyson. A leaked script revealed the entire fight was a choreographed farce. Tyson, once a powerhouse who could knock out opponents in seconds, was instructed to pull punches and move slower than a tortoise in quicksand, all to make Jake look somewhat credible. The same Tyson whose training videos showcased razor-sharp precision and power somehow stumbled through the match like he'd forgotten what sport he was playing. This wasn't a fight. It was an embarrassing spectacle, a masterclass in mediocrity designed to bolster Jake's delusion of being a legitimate boxer. The leaked script exposed every detail, proving it was more theater than sport, and not even good theater.
You stayed home and you turned on Netflix that night. We were like, holy I'm about to see the greatest live sporting event of all time.
Career isn't about boxing. It's about scams, stunts, and spinning narratives. At this point, his legacy isn't athleticism. It's how many cons he can cram into one lifetime. The fallout from Jake Paul's antics is nothing short of spectacular. Both Jake and Mike Tyson are now tangled in lawsuits, with the International Boxing Association breathing down their necks. Tyson, who reportedly cashed a meager $20 million, is accused of throwing the fight to protect Jake's fragile ego. Meanwhile, Netflix, which streamed the fiasco, is facing a class action lawsuit. Fans who paid for what was hyped as a historic match instead endured buffering issues and a low-quality fight that begged to be pirated. Naturally, they want their money back, and who could blame them? Hardcore boxing fans expecting a clash of titans were instead treated to a lukewarm pantomime, quickly dubbed the world's most expensive reality show. Social media exploded with memes. Tyson mocked for searching for his keys mid-fight, and Jake roasted for posing instead of defending. If turning boxing into comedy were an Olympic event, Jake would take home the gold. But Jake didn't stop at ruining the sport. He allegedly bankrupted fans too. His staged fights and scams are said to have cost supporters over $200 million. When the FBI raided his operations, they reportedly found hard drives containing...
Paul just got Netflix sued. People got a big problem with this stream cut now.
Containing evidence of $50 million in shady offshore transactions. Jake's legacy? Turning the ring into a circus and his fans into victims. Money laundering schemes and doping scandals big enough to fuel Netflix documentaries for years. Jake Paul isn't just a fraud, he's a walking, talking crime syndicate. Anyone foolish enough to work with him inevitably gets dragged into his swirling vortex of deceit. Even Mike Tyson, once the baddest man on the planet, willingly stepped into Jake's circus and left with his legacy in ruins. Tyson, now branded as a co-conspirator, has his once pristine reputation tarnished by association with the king of influencer fraud. Together, Jake and Tyson have proven that influencer boxing isn't just a joke. It's a disease, and Jake Paul is the virus infecting it. Yet somehow, through all of this, people dared to call Jake a boxing prodigy. A prodigy of what? Fraud, manipulation, exploitation. Jake Paul isn't a
publicly tagged on OpenSea as the problem child, which is one of Jake's favorite names for himself. So this is kind of promising, right? You've got this wallet receiving $200,000 in SafeMoon, and then it sending that money over to something called the problem child on OpenSea.
He's a scam artist who stumbled upon an audience gullible enough to buy into his lies. Every fight, every deal, and every dollar is just another chapter in his twisted playbook on fooling the world for fun and profit. Jake's arrest isn't just justice, it's karma, long overdue. If there's any silver lining to this debacle, it's that maybe, just maybe, people will finally see Jake Paul for what he truly is, a fraudster in gloves and nothing more.